Hi, I'm going to go over a vulnerability assessment that I've done for the American Legion Dorman H. Baker Post 11 here in Fairbanks, Alaska. These are my table of contents. Basically, I'm going to go over the assessment, my findings, and recommendations, as well as a cost-based analysis. The organization, the American Legion as a whole, was discovered in 1919. At the end of the First Great War, to promote a strong patriotism among the upcoming youth and to bond the veterans in further camaraderie as they're exiting the war as a way of networking and supporting the nation, continuous support of the nation. The Dorman H. Baker was actually founded in April 26th in 1921 here in Fairbanks, Alaska, as a way of showing our support and patriotism, as a way saying, "Hey, we would like to be part of the nation." There's four main pillars that the organization follows that all posts follow, which are supporting patriotism and honor, Americanism with a sense of strong nationality, and then fostering wholesome youth sports, and then advocating for service members and veterans and their families. All my base life findings, both physical, human, and cybersecurity, were based off of the ASIS International for Physical Security, the No Dark Corners approach by Nick I can't pronounce his name, but it's right there on the screen, the Catranzos, and then the ICERT's defense in depth security approach. And then all their mitigations and recommendations that I've given were based off of these philosophies as well. Basically, shortened version of the physical security. I found a few violations that are in order, going from outside in. They're actually doing pretty good on the outside. They have a limited traffic, so to enter and exit is a one-way, and the way that the members park control whether the space available for vehicles to travel in and out of the property. So if somebody wanted to hit the building, they would have to do it at an angle, and it would be less of effect. I don't know if they planned it that way, but that's how it ended up being. The surrounding facilities are Native Corporation owned, and actually are monitored by TCC, which is a Native corporation. There's four entranceways, or two entranceways, but four doors total entering the facility, or can enter the facility. Two entranceways. One is a controlled access way. One is alarmed saying, "Hey, somebody's entering the building." There's one fire exit that is barred from inside to prevent intruders from entering from the outside. And then there's one access door that's on the second floor, could be accessed from both entry into the facility and outside the facility. But there's a metal door that's attached to this to prevent unauthorized entries there. There's no security cameras at all within the building, but there is two that's monitored from TCC from the main entrance and the fire exit. And we have an agreement with the TCC to monitor those for us, but we don't get the live feedback, so we don't know who's doing what at any given time. There's two safes that are only 3 people have access to. One on the first floor, one on the second floor, and that's for transactions to be stored, monetary transactions to be stored on and off shifts, as well as business for upstairs. The inventory room is right behind the bar, and it's only monitored by the staff, and it's wide open, and there's no doors preventing anybody from just entering. So that's a violation from itself. And then all the offices upstairs, there's one door entering to upstairs, and it's locked after hours. So the only way you could get upstairs is during the daytime hours. All the security is monitored by the staff and members and TCC. Members are very quick to say, hey, we don't know you. Who are you? Introduce yourself. All members have to be able to verify their membership before entering, or as they're entering, verify. All employees have just a basic background check before even being hired as a staff member. And then all guests have to sign a guest log. Any person behind the bars have to be certified TAMS card holder. And then, as you can see, if you read here real quick, that is the right here where it says bartenders must get a bank bag, and that procedure is how we conduct our business throughout the day and week. And then, like I said, all transactions are currency based, not ATM based. In cybersecurity, they're doing pretty well off. There's only 2 devices that actually use the internet, or 3 devices that use the internet: ATM, the accounting computers upstairs, and then the GCI cable modem, which gives off a guest account for the Wi-Fi throughout the facilities. The computer upstairs have its own separate internet service, and it's actually hardwired in. And then all the devices, as shown here on the screen, is surge protected. So the assessment tool that I've chosen to assess their vulnerabilities is it's a long name. But it establishes an asset value and then supplies and then assesses that assets against threats to get the vulnerabilities and the risk against said threats. It was developed by FEMA to help school districts audit their vulnerabilities and emergency preparedness plans. So it's perfect for the American Legion as a nonprofit status in organizations to assess their practices to see how well their security is. So I started off with getting their assets and then supplying a value based off of current retail prices and replaceability of that asset. And then I gave them a quantitative value to assess in later portions of the assessment. And then I brainstormed a whole bunch of threats and came up with the list here that are these are ones that currently have a history or ones that have a high likely of actually happening, to include vandalism, theft, armed robbery, insider, which can damage an organization completely. And then I separated those into natural causes, human causes, and technology causes. As you can see, in the technology causes power failure. Here in Alaska, we have dirty power as well as dirty internet. So it was interesting findings from there. And then from that, I assessed their vulnerabilities against those threats. So as the top, you can see the threats, and I narrowed it down to 6 ones, and those ones had the higher threat rating, or the more likely to happen to cause the most damage. And then I took all the assets and then I compared how well they would do in the threat or against the threat, and then took the vulnerabilities from that. So it was based on the impact of the threat to the asset and the ability of the organization to recover said lost asset. And then I took the values of those, and then to calculate the risk, the tool says risk will equal the asset value times the threat rating times the vulnerability rating. And I did that and it came up with these numbers here. And the very high risk is anything above 260 for any given risk, or any given asset. And as you can see, the lowest would be this Connex here, based on that. A few here, like custodial functions. But the things that will cost the organization the most, they're very high risk based on the assessment. And so I recommended, just as a basic for physical security, installing cameras, especially motion sensors, that way, and then have uh, a drive to keep those on storage to review them in case something happens on and off working hours. And then have all their records. They have a bunch of records that are just scattered around everywhere. And I told, I'm going to explain to them that they need to digitize those. That way they're safe. They're not just in some room randomly disputed, uh, regardless of whether or not the cabinet is locked or not, or lockable or not. They need to digitize them and then back up that digitized into an external hard drive that is encryptable, and then place that in a safe. They have two safes. I recommend actually getting another safe. That way they could put all their additional pieces into there to be safe. And then have a camera monitoring the second entranceways, or both entranceways, but specifically the second one where there's not controlled access. That way the bartenders know who's going in there and they can prepare whether or not it's a bad actor or not. And then for the human security side, I said conduct performance reviews on the staff. There was not one performance review that was done on the staff, at least not since I've assessed it. Do that regularly, even if it's the off the record, but just note that it took place. And then if you are doing a formal one, document the conversation. And then don't rely on background checks when you're hiring. Investigate previous employees or employment and verify from character references. That way you could get a whole approach to whether or not this person's actually trustworthy and reliable. And then for security, um, and then for the third one from there, I said when you're changing authority, especially executive officers and accounting staff, make sure all the keys are returned immediately, not in a week or two, but immediately, and change any passcodes or codes that they may have had access to. And then the cybersecurity systems, I said the computer system needs to be scrubbed, reprogrammed, and then have the data of that computer program backed up regularly. Like I said up above, you could get that encrypted hard drive, and you could, 2, 3 terabytes, and you could just back up the program regularly. And then have the driver system of the Microsoft 10 updated. It was not updated. This will help performance and fix the bugs within the system. And download an antivirus along with the VPN monitoring system. That way, any threats to the system would automatically be rang to the shareholders, and change the passwords to all accounts, internet access, and computer systems about every 90 days or so. Um, and those are my recommendations. Then I got most of that is free, that you could do on your own time voluntarily, especially the human cyber portions. But the ones that did cost money, like the safe, I found a working safe that would be fire as well as security based, as in damage dropping in case there's earthquake, and it costed about that much, as well as the external hard drive, the VPN monitoring system, the antivirus, and the CCTV monitoring with 8 cameras and a hard drive to back that up. And all of that came out to be $1,000. These are my references. Any questions? Thank you.